All right. Yeah, we read Departures Part 2. Yeah. Okay. Departures. Winner of this program, A.T. Hagan. Departures Part 3. The three climbed out of the truck and walked through the snow to the doors. John noticed the adjoining Albertsons liquor store was gone and now being occupied by a new company. As they approached closer, he could read the sign in the window which said Australian Relief Authority. This struck his curiosity, so he said, "Let's go in. I want to see what they're about." Stepping through the doors, he found a clean, well-lit, largely empty of furnishings, but with a half-dozen desks and plenty of chairs. In the back of the store space, he saw many pallets stacked with bags, which he assumed were various food supplies. Sorry. A young woman... Sorry, get situated here. A young woman with an Australian accent, oddly enough, that John found very pleasant, greeted them at the door. "Good day. You look like this is your first time. Have you come to apply?" Somewhat, I don't know, not a good Australian accent, so I'll forego it. "Good day, mate." How's that? "Good day, mate." Somewhat taken aback by the idea, John said, "I'm not sure. Apply for what?" The girl looked at him rather quizzically and said, "Why, for aid and assistance, of course. Have a seat here at this desk and we'll get you started." He looked at Anne and Luke, who both shrugged their shoulders, so he sat down in the indicated chair. "Right, then," she said very industriously. "Let's have your name." "I'm John Horn. That's my wife, Anne. This is Luke Hatcher. He and his family live with us." "Very good. Do you have any children or other dependents?" "How many are in Mr. Hatcher's family?" John replied, "That's Dr. Hatcher, actually. He's a surgeon. We have a 10-year-old daughter whose name is Melinda and another 12-year-old girl named Brittany Tearsdale, who is our ward. Dr. Hatcher's wife and daughter live with us as well." "Very good," the girl said absently as she entered the information on her laptop computer. "You say Dr. Hatcher's a surgeon. We don't get many doctors in here, but we've had everything else. Is anyone else in the household employed?" He was beginning to regret letting his curiosity get the better of him and leading him into this, but the idea of applying for foreign aid in his own hometown just struck him as so odd that he went on. "Yes, my wife here works for the university as an agricultural librarian. Dr. Hatcher's wife works as a trauma nurse at the clinic in Archer. I haven't been called back to work yet. No one else is employed." "Okay, then," the girl tapped away on her keyboard. "This girl, Brittany Tearsdale, is she receiving any support from the state?" "No, we've applied for it, but the system is badly overwhelmed since the impact. I have no idea when we'll hear anything about that." The girl sniffed. "I'm afraid not. I'm surprised. The social service agencies here are hopeless." "Now then, all I need from you now is your home address and telephone number if you have one." He'd never had much use for Florida social service agencies in any regard, but somehow hearing this pretty young girl from another nation slighting them made his hackle stand up. The fact that she was right seemed to make it even worse. He gave her their address and contact information, and she entered the data and then apparently went through a series of steps in whatever program was recording their information on her computer. "It'll be just a moment, Mr. Horn. There's a bit of a lag as the data bounces off the satellites back to home where the main offices works its magic on it, then bounces it back here. While we're waiting, may I ask you if you are in need of heating assistance? That's not our bailiwick, actually, but we scout for your Red Cross and United Way mates when we process our clients." The entire process was starting to embarrass him, so he said no, rather more curtly than he really intended. Her laptop gave a musical little jingle, and the printer it was linked to began to work. A single sheet of paper rolled out, and she picked it up and scrutinized it. "Very good. The Home Office has interfaced with your national records, and everything checks out. Often enough, it doesn't. I have your monthly issue right here. If you'll follow me, we'll get one of the carts and back and load it up. I'm afraid we haven't any way to deliver it for you, but you can make multiple trips if necessary. I won't let anyone touch your issue before you can move it all." They followed the girl into the back of the store where she pulled out an Albertsons grocery cart. "Doesn't this compete with the grocery store?" John asked. "Seems like they'd object to y'all using their storefront and carts and whatnot." "Oh, no, Mr. Horn, not at all," the girl reassured him. "It's actually in their interest. As I'm sure you know, the free market prices in the stores are quite steep, even with the devaluation of your American dollar. The welfare ration your government can issue doesn't really cover the amount that the people unable to pay free market prices need. So the foreign relief agencies like us, the Japanese, the Germans, Chile, Peru, and some of the other nations are helping to cover the shortfall until you Yanks can get back on your feet again. This keeps the hard feelings that many would otherwise have against your merchants to a minimum, and also keeps your food merchants from being totally nationalized by your government. By next fall, we'll probably phase out, but this winter we are definitely needed. He nodded his head. I see, his mind awhirl with the implications of what she'd told him. Now, I'm afraid your issue is rather small for the number of people in your household due to your having a doctor and nurse living with you, but your ward, Brittany, did you say her name was? Helps to balance that out. She's in your state records as being fostered to you. If this amount will be a hardship for your household, you can apply for a special circumstances waiver. John asked, your home office seems to have a pretty complete access to American records. How did they arrange that? Oh, that, she said. Your government arranged that through the relevant United Nations relief agencies so that the various national relief authorities and non-governmental relief organizations like Red Cross could more quickly speed aid to the necessary people in need here in the U.S. while minimizing fraud and abuse. I'm sorry to say we've had a bit of a problem along those lines, but your local authorities have been very helpful in dealing with it. I see, he said as she indicated bags and parcels to a young man in a shop apron who began to load them onto John's cart. Now then, the girl smiled brightly, I think we've got you about ready to go. There's your powdered milk, your flour, your rice, your sugar, your dry beans, your cooking fat, and because you have children in your household, your powdered eggs. There's also a powdered fruit drink which contains the daily requirements of vitamins A and C. Tastes rather like your American Hawaiian punch, I'm told. John said nothing at first, but just stared at the food in the cart. He then turned and looked at Luke and Anne. Luke was stone-faced. Anne looked at him expectantly, like she was waiting on him to tell her something. A knot grew inside his chest, and he felt his face burning. Finally, he turned back to the young girl and said, Miss, I'm sorry. I can't do this. I really do appreciate what your people are trying to do here for those folks who need it, but I just can't. I'm sorry to have wasted your time. Thank you just the same. He turned and began to walk away. Mr. Horn, the girl said as he turned around. She had a sympathetic look on her face. She spoke gently. I understand. I really do. You're not the first one who has had reservations. I won't try to force this on you, but if you should change your mind, it will be here for you if you want it. Shame burned through him, but he kept his voice gentle as well. Thank you, miss. If I change my mind, I'll be back. You've been nothing but kind. He turned again and walked out, Luke and Anne following. Outside the store, Anne touched her husband on the arm and said, John, why didn't you take that food? It could really help us get through this winter. It's not like we're stealing it. They checked us out. Even with Luke and Lisa being with us, we're entitled to it. John shook his head. Darling, I've never really thought of myself as a proud man before, but just then I realized how proud I really am. These people mean well, they really do. They're not doing anything for us that we haven't done for many, many nations around this world in our time when disaster fell upon them. But just now I've come to realize what a bitter pill such aid must be to anyone accustomed to providing for their families through the fruits of their own efforts. The fact that she was nothing but kind just made it all the worse. We're hard up compared to what we had before the impact, but we're not that hard up, and by God, so long as I live, the Horn family never will be. I bear these people no ill will, but we will take care of our own. We came here to buy condiments, for God's sakes, not ask for charity, no matter how kindly it is offered. Anne looked him in the face and said nothing for a moment, then spoke. Those whom the gods would destroy, they first make proud. Oh boy, some people, that's a lesson. He said nothing for a moment, his jaw working, then finally let out, I won't deny the truth in what you have said, but a man's got to stand for something or he is no man at all. These folks aren't going anywhere anytime soon. If worse comes to worse, I'll swallow my pride and walk in here hat in hand, but we're not there yet. By the grace of God, we never will be. Now let's go get that damn Tabasco sauce.